So while we're waiting for that, let's go ahead and we'll talk a little bit about the old event store a little bit. So we've all been holding off on doing our videos because at the beginning of the month we looked through the store. We said this is kind of lackluster. There's a handful of things we'd like to add. Dear Scopely, could you help us out a little bit? We know you're not going to add everything off this list, but maybe like 2 or 3 things. Here's some stuff players really want. And some of the top things on that list we talked about, people wanted Tal. We knew they were never going to get Tal. People wanted independent credits and better sourcing. People wanted officer badges so they can promote officers. People wanted nanoprobes so they could promote their Talios or their Vidar faster. People were asking for, obviously different ship blueprints, strike team rollouts, armada credits. Never really going to happen there. What was the other big thing that people were asking for? Some of the projectiles and things too. And after 2 weeks of deliberation, Scopely decided to not add any of those this time around. They went like, no, we think all the stuff in the store is exactly, in the event store is just fine. But if you want those things that you were really talking about, well, here's a whole bunch of new packs. Oh, yeah. Oh, that was the other thing. People wanted Fleet Commander shards, too. Right, people wanted Fleet Commander shards. Well, we got a new nanoprobe combo pack, which has a whole bunch of charged nanoprobes, plus a bunch of independent credits, and a bunch of officer badges. Well, here, you gave us a list of 10 things that you wanted. We put 3 of them into a pack for you. And for $99.99, you can have those things. Limit 2. I love the limit 2. You got 7 and 9 back in the store. She had come down for a little bit. She's back available. We also got these officer special bundles right here. Lorca, good officer. Badges. Geordie, I don't know who was asking for Geordie, but they gave us the same pack with Geordie instead of Lorca. And then over here you've got your Borg officer, but more importantly it's independent credits and officer badges. So I guess they looked at the list, decided not to add any of the stuff, and saw an opportunity to maybe sell some more of it. I also don't know who was asking for the jellyfish refit, but hey, here you go. You wanted other refits added to the store? Well, here's another refit. Rare Armada cores. That's the other one we always ask for that we never get. We've never gotten it. We've asked for it for at least as long as I've been Ops 40 plus. We've been asking for it, so that's got to be pushing 18 months at this point. And they've never added it once. They prefer that being a paywall feature for players. Strange New World Strike Team has also been here for a little while now. But look, more officer badges. Plus, it's a full unlock of Una and Ortegas. It's just La'an that you're going to be struggling trying to get to. Since you can only get 10 per poll, and you can only buy 4 of them, so if you don't have her, the best you could get is 40 out of 100. You'd get these guys tiered up nicely. If you bought 4 of these packs, you get them unlocked and tiered up and be halfway to the 3rd tier, maybe? So, yeah, certainly not. And then this is just some regular stuff down here. Yeah, certainly not ideal, but at least, they're taking a stab at it. If players really truly want these things, they'll obviously buy them, right? That remains to be seen. So, the combo station pack. You're right. That's the other one I forgot to mention, because that was another thing people asked for. They asked for currency for the new buildings. They wanted currency for the armory. They wanted currency for the mess hall and things like that. And what did they give us? Well, they gave us a combo building pack that has currency for the mess hall, for the armory, for the command center, so you can upgrade these things. Plus a bunch of other resources based on your ops level. But no officer badges. If it had the officer badges, instead of the officer badges, you get resources though. And you're right, this is a tempting looking pack because, this might get you a couple levels on the armory, this might get you 2 or 3 levels, a couple levels on the mess hall, plus a bunch of other resources. But I do agree, based on the general principle, it does feel wrong to buy it. You may have noticed, I didn't even buy my battle pass yet this month because I was waiting to see exactly what they were going to do. If they were going to add stuff, if they weren't going to add stuff, how I was going to feel about this month, and whether I wanted to even give them $20 this month. And I'm still thinking about that. Star Trek Fleet Command, where everything is worth something and the costs are dumb. Well, Carissa, you can't really argue too much with that. The price points in this game are certainly very high, and the patience level needed to grind certain things for free can also be high for some people, depending on your pain threshold. Most things do have a free to play path. It just requires a lot of time and patience to get there. You bought the 4-star Prime, which is 20%, not 50% as stated, so I skipped the Battle Pass. Well, it's a 50% increase, but there's other things modifying that value already, Bel Air. It's like when you buy something that says weapon damage plus 200%. It's not taking the number you have and just adding 200% to it, because there's like 7 other things that are already modifying that value. Same thing with the ship parts one, too. There's already a bunch of different researches that are modifying that value, so it's not just like... if you were a level 1 account and you bought it, yes, you would see a 50% increase in your, your parts. Not that it would be available to you, but you get the point. That may also be something else that they don't make very clear with players, is that how competing values or competing modifiers and things get factored into the equation. So Lube's hoping that badges are sorted now that you get 2 a week from Apex. That's if you're buying them from Apex. If you want the Stella skin, you're not getting the badges from there. You're getting the Stella skin blueprints instead. So so that's where we landed on with the event store and the currencies and things there. So now that brings us to the big question. What exactly is in the event store? The skin and badges are different currencies? Not exactly. Because if you want the badges, you're handing in the blue things. But if you want the currency, you're spending the blue things here to get the contraband. Now, you could also just get the contraband from the SLB. But if you want the additional rolls, well, then you have to convert your blue Eclipse Heist tokens here instead of here. So that way you can get this faster. The modifiers and things do not stack the way you think. They add additively based on the base amount, not the amount after modification. Yes, they all affect the base amount, so they all affect the base amount. So if something says it's giving you a 100% increase to something, it's giving you a 100% increase to the base value, not the value that you're seeing on your screen, because that's already been modified by other things. So You know, weapon damage is a good one. You shoot something with your ship, you see it, oh look, I did 100,000 damage. Yeah, but there's 7 different things that are modifying your weapon damage between research and buildings and officers and all that other stuff. So if you bought something that said, oh, we'll give you 100% more damage, you're not going to hit the guy for 200,000 next time. You're going to hit him for like 115,000. And like, well, why did it only go up 15k? Well, that's why, because you're only adding 100% to the original base value before any other modifiers are applied. So, how does the Centurion compare to the Saladin? Since I want to max the Vidar, I'm hesitant to level up another Interceptor. The Centurion's good. All of the 28 ships are fine. The Saladin's the better one because it has that big one-time weapon, which if you time it right or have a crit crew, you can get a large portion of damage through in the very early stages of the game. But, I mean, it is kind of a one big shot kind of ship. So, I mean, the Centurion does fine. Any of the 28s are fine. You're just trying to use one to hold you over for a little while until you get to the 34s, so. Alright, now that we've ventured into our event store, we'll take a look at a few things. And alright, for those of you who just want the highlights, who just want the cheat codes, who just want the cliff notes, whatever you want to call it, the abridged version, I'm going to give you the list right here. I've got it written down on this piece of paper. This is the list of must-have items from this event store. You ready? There it is. Wait. You can't see it. You can't see it. Nope. I'm not going to let you see it because of the angle. Bah. Well, there's only one thing written on this piece of paper, and it says Hugh. Because that's it. That's the only must-have item in this store. Hugh. And if you're below level 20, you can't even get them. Because you can't get rare officers. You can't get epic officers below level 20. So let's start with the obvious. Right off the bat. Hugh. There he is. The best officer that they've released in the last 12 months. Hands down. We did the deep dive video into him a week or two ago. You know, I went out, I did my dailies, I killed stuff. I killed 58 ships. Then I put Hugh below deck in one. That's the only thing I changed. Went right back, killed the same exact things, and I killed 92 ships. It's like a 34 ship increase, which is nearly a 50% increase in my kills per hull, simply by having him below deck because of what he does in terms of adding critical hit chance. Level 1, right off the bat, 45% chance to increase critical hit by 25% for 2 rounds. Can stack. It's per weapon, not per shot, unlike Beverly, who's per shot. But there are plenty of hostiles out there who have 2 and 3 weapons. At least freebooters have 6. So you've got a tremendous opportunity to get shot, take some hits, and then it's kind of a coin toss as to whether or not his ability triggers, boosting your critical hit chance for the round you're in plus the following round. So it can start to snowball and keep rolling forward until you get to the point, you know, you'll have plenty of opportunities during that fight to have all your shots be criticals. You're going to end fights a lot faster that way, 5-10 rounds earlier, and it's going to make your life so much easier for all of your hostile grinding, which you do a lot of in this game. There are so many different hostile types you have to hit on a regular basis for all the different currencies that you need, for all the different broken ship parts you have to refine, that this guy is a game changer and substantially increases that. If you don't have him, your number one priority should be to unlock him. if you already have him unlocked, he's worth considering upgrading to because you want to just keep him going. Tier 2 is only a 5% change in his ability, so it goes from 45% to 50%. That's not great. And if it was going to be like personally me, I just barely unlocked Hugh. Now I've got 4 shards. It would cost me 700,000 currency to take him to tier 2. Even if I had that, I wouldn't spend 700,000 currency to take him all the way to tier 2 for only a 5% increase. To me, that's not worth it. If you're closer than that, it may be worth it to you. You know, if you're halfway there or 3/4 of the way there, it certainly could be worth it to pick up the second tier of shards. If you don't have him unlocked, he is 100% worth spending your entire event store on. So, was he tiered up? No, tier 1, right out of the box. If you can't unlock him, if you don't have enough currency to do that, that's where you fall into the trap. If you don't have enough currency to get all the shards that you need to unlock him, the follow-up question is going to be, are you at least Ops 40? Because if you're not Ops 40, you don't have access to his regular sourcing, which is from the Borg refinery. He's in these epic solo armada chests, right there. The only way to get the directives and to get these is to be Ops 40, because the rare chest doesn't show up, and you have to do the rare solos to get the epic directives. So then you can kill the epic armadas. These 2 chests are not available if you are less than below Ops 40, shall we say. If you're 39 and under, you don't have a path to source Hugh in the game. So if you can't get him all the way, then you certainly may be in a position where now you're starting to look around at what else is available in the store. And we'll get to that, some of these other things that are available. So now, before you all go off spending all of your event store currency right now, here today, I do just, if you don't have him unlocked, please go get him unlocked if you can. That's worth it. That's worth anything. If you're thinking about tiering him up, I'm going to advise you to hold off on that just a little bit longer, because Scopely's sneaky. We know this about them. And in 1 day and 16 hours, this Borg special goes away. And now that word has gotten out that they are not going to be changing the event store, everybody who's been sitting on their currency is thinking to themselves, well, great, I guess I can just go ahead and spend all my currency now to get the things that I want, since they're not going to make any changes to it. It would not surprise me in the slightest if in 40 hours from now, when this special goes away, it gets replaced by something that's actually pretty good and might have some value to it. And now everybody who just spent all their shards or their coins getting all of their other stuff is going to be kicking themselves, and they're going to think to themselves, well, now I need 120,000 more currency because I really want to buy this special before it goes away in 4 or 5 days. Am I going to have enough events to get it between now and then? Maybe, maybe not, depending on how many tickets you can do. I guess I might have to buy something to get the extra currency. Which then funnels right back into what we were talking about at the beginning about they gave us more stuff to buy. I guess that should also lead into the fact that if you buy stuff on the web store right now, you can get additional event store currency for the next 2 days and 16 hours and 33 minutes. Because they have this old web store event, which by acquiring multiphasics, you get additional store currency. So it doesn't surprise me that they're going to push things to sell, and they might push these extra 120,000 cost bundles, flash bundles, to stimulate people to want to buy stuff to also get the coins they need to then cash in for the bundles. So just keep that in mind. There's your disclaimer. There's how my mind is perceiving how their mind works. So might be worth holding off just a little bit longer just to see what this next bundle is. Now that I let that cat out of the bag, we'll see what they do. Other things worth getting in here, other officers, the Borg Queen Gasa Dezak. The assimilated crew is only useful for PvP, and even then they only affect certain PvP officers because of how their assimilated ability works. So there's a little bit niche there. They can help and certainly can make a difference if you're punching up against a stronger ship or someone who's done a little more research than you. It can help level the playing field a little bit. And at least the rare officers at 2,000 are fairly cheap. Giving yourself a little bit more of a boost if you can get them, unlocked. Dezok is the one you want because he's the one who doesn't have sourcing. He's also the one who actually applies the assimilate that the other two need. You can also get an additional boost to this assimilated mechanic if you have 7 of 9 as your fleet commander. Something else to think about there. Galinar, he's okay. He gives you a little bit more Axion Venom. He gives you a little bit more nanoprobes. So if he speeds up your grinding a little bit, he improves the loot drop from their base value. So if you have an officer like 5 of 11 who's also adding, or if you're doing your Axion hunting with your Pylum, and you've got, Tal, and you're doing that whole thing, so the Pylum's giving you a loot bonus, and 5 of 11's giving you a loot bonus, you'll get a little bit more by having Galinar below deck, but, not a whole lot. Is he worth unlocking? Yes. Is he worth tiering up? Probably not. Picard, I'm not a big fan of. He's expensive, and his ability is kind of limited. Only when you're fighting PvP, and only when you're fighting against other explorers. It's a little too niche for my tastes. Beverly Picard, I do like very much for both of her abilities, giving you the extra broken parts. This comes in handy for players who are killing 4-star ships or 5-star ships for the broken parts they need for the refinery to get the extra parts they need to upgrade their ships. If you're still in your 20s or 30s, you may need this eventually. Well, you will need this eventually. This ability will still come into play, though, especially as you get into the higher 30s and you start working on the freebooters, because the freebooters at 38 aren't so bad, but when your dailies start requiring 39s, now you have to kill 40s, and the 40s do hit a little bit harder. So having her as an officer option for you can kind of negate that a little bit. This will also come into play when your dailies move up, and now you have to do 41s for your dailies. There are no 41 hostiles. There's 38, there's 40, there's 43. So if you have to kill 43s to do your dailies that count as your 41s and 42s, you're punching up significantly. And her ability can definitely help with that because they shoot you 6 times per round. So if you have, hey, that Hugh guy below deck, now you're going to be shooting 100% criticals. Now you've got adding 24% to your crit damage every single round. The fight goes 20 rounds. You've just added almost 500% to your total damage. And then you throw somebody like Gorkon with Hull Breach on the other side, and, now you've added 500, 600, 700% extra damage. You can punch up significantly well to get those things accomplished until you start getting to that next tier of ship to make your life easier. Resources and materials. This is, this is what you spend your money on at the end of the day. When you get your other stuff and you have 50,000 or 20,000, whatever left over, and you're like, well, I can't really afford much of anything, I'll either grab something out of special currency or something out of resources, whatever just sort of helps you the most in the position that you're in. Frames and avatars have no in-game value other than they look cute. Do with that what you will. for me, I just skip right on by that. This folder doesn't even exist because nothing in here changes anything about the game. And there are so many things that you need to help improve your game that to me this is, this is for stuff for people who have everything already and they're like, what else would I want? Chances are they probably already bought the stuff that these came in anyway, so, or bought stuff to finish high in the leaderboard events that gave these as rewards. So even then, I'm not really sure who's cashing in this stuff, but maybe somebody is. Specialty currencies, trait XP isn't a bad one. Mycelium, this is expensive. This is 150,000. Now that should be hopefully a very long time supply. 480,000 discovery jump juice. There is a cheaper option if you're just looking for a little pick-me-up. For 30K, you can get 80,000. You'll notice, basically it's buy 5 of these, get the 6th one free. Josh the King, thank you very much for the follow. If you buy the bigger pack, basically you're buying 5 and getting the 6th one for free. But if you just wanted a little bit, just a little bit to put you over, there's the cheaper pack. Culver Particles is only for Cerritos research, not worth investing in. Tetrions for cloaking, you get those daily. Cloaked Racketeer token, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances buy this. This is a complete waste. This is a terrible prime. It shouldn't exist. When cloaking came out, they gave this to everyone for free because it was that terrible of a mechanic in a prime that it does not do anything that would warrant spending money on. And at 60,000 event store tokens, there are so many better things you could use this on. I would buy 60,000 worth of Tetrions before I would buy this Cloaked Racketeer token for that prime research. That's how bad this is. Active Nanoprobes is only for upgrading Borg officers, not really worth it. Urbanite's only for boosting things with the Cerritos. Again, you get that on a regular basis. Axion chips, only for doing those exocomp pulls, not worth it at all. So out of here, Syndicate XP, yes. Independent credits, I like the sourcing. I'm not fond of the price. 500 credits for 19,000 currency. It's a little pricey. Especially when you start getting to the point where you need, 7 to 10,000 to promote officers. That's really expensive to source that way. Syndicate XP, yes. Trait XP, yes. Mycelium, depending on your needs and how often you use your discovery. That's going to vary based on you. So let's go to ship parts. There's a lot of stuff in here about the Franklin. If you are in the Franklin A, this ship has a very short shelf life these days. It used to be, you recycled your Franklin into your Franklin A at 35 because you needed it to do all the high-level swarm stuff. Now with the X-Borg research that you get at 38, you don't need the Franklin anymore or the Franklin A. The only exception is for those random heavy hitter events, because even the Swarm Sunday event only requires you to kill level 35s, which, you can do with a very basic Franklin A. So spending time and currency and things like that, getting upgrade components, or more importantly, components for a second one, because you get all the components for the first one. It's like if you wanted to build the second one, you would have to get a lot of these interlocks and stuff out of here. Not worth it at all because of the very short shelf life now that the Franklin A has. It's really not used anymore, or won't be used anymore. If you're still in your 30s, you're going to need it. When you get to 38, you're almost never going to use it again. Amalgam upgrade parts, we're going to talk about in a second, along with Fuchsia parts, Cerritos parts, and Mantis parts. For those of you who weren't here last week when I was talking about this, those 4 ships, your event store currency, the amount of currency that you get, is directly tied to the tier of your ship. So if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I really want to upgrade my Mantis so I start getting more Syndicate XP on a regular daily basis. All right, I'm just going to dump 200,000 points, get as much of this Nitrium as I can so I can upgrade as many components as I can. Don't do that. Figure out how many parts you need to upgrade to the next tier, because as soon as you change tiers on your ship, the amount you get in here in the store will also increase. The cost remains the same, the amount of parts you get goes up. So if your Mantis was tier 6, this might be like 8,000 parts. It would still cost you 7,500 coins, but you did 8,000 parts. Now you tier it up to tier 7, and now maybe it's 9,000 parts or 10,000 parts. You're getting more value for your money by taking the break and upgrading the ship in between. We've talked about that before, but there's 83 people here watching today, and I'm sure some of you may not have seen that before, so... I do want to make sure to point that out again. Everything else in this thing is pretty much junk, except for those 4 ships. And again, I would sort of rank those as like tier 2, tier 3 kind of things. If you got some Hugh shards and you're like, well, my Cerritos is pretty close to tiering up, let me just grab 20k worth of parts. Maybe I can get that last 1 or 2 components done so I can tier it up. The Cerritos gets additional events at tier 5, so if you're close to that, I could see investing a little bit of currency in it. Not a lot, maybe like 40, it's 7,500 a piece. So maybe, if you did like a 3 or 5 chest pull just to get a little extra currency to get that tiered to 5 a little faster, that could certainly be worth it. Mantis we talked about. Obviously, you get the different payouts. We talked about the chart at the beginning. The Fuchsia, obviously upgrading that gets you higher warp range. The Fuchsia has one of the highest warp ranges of any ship. It is incredibly useful for exploring hard-to-reach places, for completing missions and things like that you might not ordinarily be able to reach, for relocating your base to far-level systems where you normally couldn't get to, for starting high-level armadas that the rest of your bigger players in your alliance can carry you through. Why would you do that? Because the setter's chest is so much ridiculously better. If you can only reach to kill a level 41 uncommon, your setter's chest might give you like 30 or 40,000 currency. If you can make it all the way out further and you can do a 47 or a 49, that's going to be like 5 or 6 times the amount is what you're going to get in your setter's chest. So if you have big players in your alliance who can carry you and can do the heavy lifting, you just fly your Fuchsia out there, set the armada, you get blown up in the first round, but who cares? You get the setter's chest, which is all you're really after. Fuchsia is very useful for things like that, so picking up some parts for it, again, not so bad. Same thing with the amalgam here as well. The other 2 parts for the Devore and for the Discovery, you need so many Devore parts to get it up to max it out. I think it's like 200,000 to go from tier 8. It's 200,000 to go from tier 1 to tier 8, and it's another like 200,000 to go from tier 8 to tier 9. So it's kind of ridiculous, but I can understand wanting to spend a little bit to try and speed that process up. And it's not a bad value for it. It's not a great value. It's probably a little outdated. Same thing with the spore drives. This one is significantly higher. It's very expensive. There are values to getting your Discovery tiered up higher. The jump juice cost decreases as you advance the tier of the ship. And when you do get it to tier 9, you do get additional bonuses out of your refinery, but you have to be ops level 40 for the bonus to take effect. So you don't need a max discovery until you get to ops 40. So investing in this, if you're like in your low 30s, not really worth it in my opinion. So now we're down to just 2 categories, ship blueprints and ship refits. We're going to do blueprints first. Most of these are faction-based ships. You are limited to 10% of the number of blueprints that is required to build it, which is fairly restrictive, but maybe it's enough to sort of you know, save you a couple of days, save you a little bit of time at 6,000, you know, for 42. For if we're talking about 6,700 for, you know, a 46 rare, like the price point isn't bad. Even if you're down here and you're thinking about, you know, getting your Enterprise or something like that, that's a little ridiculous. 10,000 points per shard because it's considered an epic makes a 34 epic more expensive than a 46 rare and nearly double the cost of a 42 uncommon. So I would not suggest buying the blueprints for the 34 epics unless you're, you know, really stuck at that point because of the higher cost associated. But if you're, you know, building yourself up, you're moving into the 40s, you want to get a couple blueprints to kind of set yourself up for your Valdor, Katinga, or Kelvin, or whatever, or you're closing in on your 46 and want to pick up those last blueprints so you're ready, that's a reasonable thing to pick up. I myself may be spending a little bit of currency because, again, of the cost. I can get blueprints for my 53 uncommon for 9,500, which is less than a 34 epic. The ship that I am now scrapping, I'm scrapping an Enterprise right now, currently, or an Augur currently, to get materials. I can would cost me more to buy the blueprints for than it does to buy a level 53 ship. Just to show you how out of whack the pricing is on some of these things. The Mantis. If you don't have one, this should be a priority to get. It's going to cost you 150,000 to unlock it if you don't have any of the shards for it. If we assume you get 450 to 500, if you're free to play, 6 to 700,000. If you have done ticket events or you're finishing high in solo and alliance leaderboards, is this worth a third of your event store? Yes. Yes, it is. Is it worth more than Hugh? Hopefully you can get both, because I wouldn't want to have to make that decision. The only thing I would say is that it's possible incursions might come back, or the incursion store might come back. The Mantis also will be likely to be in future event stores, whereas Hugh, being an officer from the last arc, is unlikely to be in future event stores. So I would still weigh Hugh. If for some reason you could only get one of the two, I would probably take Hugh. I know some people might disagree with that and think, but the Strange New World officers and the Syndicate XP have so much value. Yes, they do. But this will come back. There will be a way to get this again. Hugh, there may not be. We don't have any sourcing for like Jadzia and Odo and those guys, right? And they came out in December. Hugh came out in January. So we very well may not see sourcing, you know. Here there is sourcing for Hugh, right? You got to be level 40 and you got to kill the Borg armadas. That's your sourcing for Hugh. Are they going to add anything else for him? Probably not. So I would be inclined to still take Hugh. If you had to choose, gun to your head, which one would you pick? I would still take Hugh over the Mantis. If you can find a way to get them both, you're going to have a really good month. Look how hard TNG Picard is to get. Exactly. For some reason, they valued him at such a high level, and shards for him come around very infrequently. There are certain officers that really just have terrible sourcing in this game. Hugh's sourcing seems to be sort of gate locked behind Ops 40 and the Borg Solo Armada loop. And I don't see that changing. The Mantis is locked behind the Incursion store, which, you know, they keep saying they're reworking and revisiting. We may get, you're more likely to see Incursions come back than you are to see Hugh in an event store again. So that's what I would say about that. We talked about these other ships. I mean, I wouldn't. The 32 rares aren't really worth building in general to begin with. You go ahead, you get your 28, you get maybe 2 of the 28s, so you can do solo armadas. Get a Bortas and a Centurion, and then get a Vidar. Or, that'll hold you over for a while. You get to 34, you get one of these, or 34 or 35, depending when you can actually build it. You get one of your epics. Now you can go do some solo armadas. You should be fine. Skip the 32s completely, so you definitely don't even need the blueprints. Definitely don't buy these blueprints. These will drop like candy once you actually start faction grinding. When you're in your mid-30s and you're doing all that stuff. The Meridian's the other one in here with some value because the Meridian is only sourceable through event stores. After its initial release, when they sold it, they never added any mechanic to source this in the game. So we'll have to see exactly what's going on here. Darth Adama, thank you very much for the follow. You can source a Meridian completely for another 150,000. Yeah. So hopefully you don't need too many Hugh shards. You can get Hugh, you can get your Mantis, maybe you can get a Meridian. Even if you can't and you get half a Meridian now, the Meridian will come back in 3 or 4 months. You can get the other half of it. If you're in your low 20s, then you're not worrying about the Mantis yet. So then you have free space to get the Meridian. If you already have a Meridian, you're thinking about a second one, I mean, they're helpful, but I've gotten by with just one now for 3 years or 2 years, whatever long it's been, territory's been out. So you can get it done. It's just not as convenient. And then over here, these are more of ships that are normally sourceable through ways in the game. If you have a little bit of currency left over at the end and you're thinking about trying to speed some stuff up, getting a second Stella is certainly helpful. Not that expensive to get. If you are close to 36 and you can see the Cerritos, you should buy at least 2 bundles, giving yourself 10 blueprints for the USS Cerritos, because this is sourced through an event every Wednesday. And that event, we're going to pull up, we're going to take a quick look at, because I'm going to show you exactly what I mean here. Reset filters. Reset name, California. Knows how to party. What? No. Last 7 days. California class. When you finish this event, the final milestone, it says mission token. What this really is this gives you 10 blueprints for the Cerritos. When you complete this event 10 times, you would have acquired 100 blueprints, which is exactly what you need to build the Cerritos. And then this event stops spawning for you. So, what you do is, you buy 10 blueprints out of the event store, see? Then you finish the event 9 times, and then the 10th time, you just don't finish it. You complete the event up to the 3rd milestone every Wednesday for the rest of your life. Yes, I said your life, not just your game life. Your entire life. Every Wednesday, you will have to log in and do this event up to the 3rd milestone. And for doing so, you will be rewarded with a little bit of titanium and a little bit of extra free crystal. This does scale up at different ops levels and does change the point values. You do start getting 4-star crystal in the 40s, and when you eventually get to your 50s, you get larger amounts of titanium, and you do get little bits of 5-star crystal as well. You just have to make sure you buy at least 10 blueprints from the event store, so that way you can get your Cerritos with the other 90 and not finish that event for the 10th time. Once you finish that event 10 times, it goes away and it doesn't come back. All right. I think that's it for ship blueprints. If you don't have a baby jelly and you want to do some base defense, this one's not terribly expensive. It's 30, what's it, 15 times to get this. So 30,000 would get you a baby jelly. If you're thinking about what to spend some extra currency on, this one's pretty useful for some base defense because of the ship ability. They did sneak in an event that gave 10 blueprints that counted as California class. They did do that about a year ago. There was an issue where the event didn't spawn for some people, so to counteract that, they just gave everybody 10 blueprints, and which then counted as them completing the event one time. So if you were at 90, you got knocked out of the event and you lost it. I think I had bought 20 or 30 blueprints, so I only had to finish it like 7 or 8 times. So when that happened to me, I didn't get knocked out of the event, so I still have it. But I do understand that. Hopefully something like that won't happen again. If you really want to hedge your bets, buy 20 blueprints for the Cerritos, just to give yourself a little more breathing room. But if you're short on currency, at least get 10. All right. Home stretch here, folks. Home stretch. Then I'll read through the chat and talk about your questions. Lastly, we have our ship refits. We've got cloakings in here. We've got ship refits in here. Let's start with cloakings. Anything for faction ships level 42 and below, you can get the cloaking through your faction store, so I would not buy them from here. Even though they may be not overly expensive compared to the faction credit cost, these are also ships you're probably going to outgrow fairly quickly. So I don't know that I would invest too heavily in getting cloaking for them, especially not from an event store here. If you had to buy this 6 times, 6 times 12 and a half is 75,000. Spending 75,000 cloaking currency on a Centurion refit, probably not worth it in the long run. The ships that are 46 rare and up, like the Pilum, the Coronar, the Tribune, those kinds of ships, those cloaking refits are currently only available through the pay store. And the cloaking refit for the Pilum and the Coronar costs $300. So this would be a wonderful thing if you can afford it to get from here. 80 shards. 80 shards times 5,600, about 450,000. That's your big ticket item. That would be your big ticket item. But it's going to save you 300 bucks. So after you get Hugh, and you're wondering what else to get, if you can get this, go for it. Even if you don't get the whole thing, if you get at least 2 bundles, because they come in 27s. So if you get at least 54, then you only got to spend 100 bucks to buy the last third of it out of the store. And that's still a significant dollar value savings. The Epics, the Tribune, that's a $400 cloaking. But it's also significantly more expensive in here. This would be talking about 12 bundles at 600,000 event store currency is what it would cost me to get cloaking for my Tribune. Probably not going to buy it. Just too expensive to do it. All right. Refits. Up until recently, the Stella refit was very high up on the top of people's lists. But, as we just found out, that's now available through the Apex event. You can get between, by doing the bare minimum requirements, finishing the 2 SMSs, you get 2 shards a week. That's going to take you 60 weeks. If you place from doing the Armadas in the top 50, you get enough currency to get 5 more. Now you're getting 7 shards a week. You need 120 to build it. Now you're talking about like 18 to 20 weeks. It's like 5 to 6 months. it's a little bit better than a year and a quarter to do it. And if you happen to have a good month or a good week and finish a little higher on that Armada leaderboard, then you might get more shards and speed that up a little bit faster and maybe get it down to like 4 months or 3 months. If you wanted to pick up 5 or 10 shards out of here to speed that process up, it's not a bad way to spend a little event store currency as well. But I would not spend the 450,000 currency to buy the thing outright when it does have a free-to-play path to source it in the game. You just have to be a little patient. Positronic phaser, this you can source through the amalgam refinery, and it's only like a 10% boost to weapon damage. Not really worth it. There's a couple other refits and things in here that I already have, so I may not be able to see. The amalgam refit is interesting. This also costs 450,000. But we have to look at what it actually does to determine whether or not it's actually worth it. So the amalgam ship skin, as soon as I find it, I always have trouble finding this one for some reason. Ah, there it is. Because I expect it to be, because this is why, because the amalgam is a rare ship, but the refit for it is an epic, which doesn't make sense to me. Anywho, so this increases the amalgam bonus loot ship ability by 30%. So what they're talking about is the amalgam's ability that when you're looting stuff from bases, this combat scavenger. So it says it takes like mine at tier 8, takes an additional 0.83% of the remaining resources. And that's when you get those big, huge numbers. So let's just do a little math. So if I'm attacking a base and it's got 1 billion in total resources, tens, thousands, millions, billion. It's got 1 billion in total resources times 0.00083, because that's 0.083%. I would get an extra 830,000 loot above my capacity. So if I could hold 5 million and I hit that base, now I'm getting 5.8 million. So I'm getting this little extra 830,000. The amalgam skin increases this by 30%. So if I do this times 1.3, so instead of getting 830,000, I'm now getting 1 million. Is that worth 450,000 event store currency? It depends tremendously on your level and what levels you are raiding and how often you raid. If you have people in your alliance who are big players who can hit bigger level bases and crack one open for you, this extra bonus could be huge. Because if you find somebody who's got, let's take me for example. If my base got cracked open right now while I'm, over here yapping, I got 26 minutes on my shield, okay. So we're talking about 556. I've got 900 billion. So I've got 900 billion resources right now. If somebody my size came by with their amalgam times 0.00083, they would get 747 million extra resources from raiding me. If they had the amalgam skin, they would get 971 million instead. So they're getting an extra 225 million. So as you can see, the value of this amalgam skin scales tremendously, much like the ability of the amalgam based on the targets you're hitting. Makes it very subjective in terms of whether or not it is a valuable thing to get. It does not have any other sourcing other than buying it. So if you were in a position where like you already had Hugh and you don't need another Meridian and you're looking around at some of these other stuff, or you do a lot of base raiding, this might be the thing for you. The salvager refits, these aren't bad, but these are also now sourceable through the same Apex events to give these a bit of a boost. These give you a nice little boost in mitigation. These are decent in terms of helping your ship improve its defenses, and they look kind of cool. The regular ones, the TOS refits, these only give you a slight boost to damage when you're fighting PvE hostiles. Hang on. So they're mildly useful at the cost of 300,000, assuming it's half your event store. No, that cost is not appropriate with their value. It's too expensive for what it does. If it was 150, maybe. At 300, no, not worth it. Everything else in here. The other thing people have been asking about are these Kelvin Valdora refits. So these refits give you a boost to your reputation grinding. Somebody asked me, they said, well, if I get this refit, my reputation grinding will go so much faster. So I think I'm going to spend all my event store currency on that instead. And I asked them, I said, well, I guess you already have Hugh then. And they said, no, but I think if I can kill more stuff and get my rep up, I won't need Hugh as much. To which I then countered, if you have Hugh, you'll kill more stuff per trip and you'll still gain the rep faster than if you had the refit on the ship. So these particular refits here increase the amount of whatever ship it's on. So if it's on your Federation ship, you turn your Kelvin into this Jem'Hadar fighter. Now you get 100% more Federation rep, but again, it's not a true 100% because it's 100% to the base value of the reputation. You already have 3 or 4 other researches that are going to add to your reputation gain. So it's not going to be, oh, I killed this thing and I get 50,000 reputation and now I get 100% increase to that. I'm going to get 100,000 reputation. It's like, no, you kill that thing and you get 12,000 reputation, but because you have all these other modifiers, you're getting 50k. So when you're adding an extra base value onto that, you're only adding another 12,000. So you're not going to see quite the difference in the gains that you think you're going to see with that. Whereas with Hugh, you could kill 35, 40 more hostiles per trip, which means you can get more kills per hull equals more reputation gained in a faster period of time. Yeah. And I think that covers everything in the event store. Ignore this because this is from the Thursday events. So I think that's it. Now again, for those of you who skipped over this part to the end, here's your final reminder. When this event goes away in a day and a half, they will very likely replace it with a new bundle, and there's a decent chance it may be a bundle that you'll actually find desirable, simply because they told you today they're not changing the event store, and they expect that people are going to just spend all their currency today. They're going to say, this bundle sucks, the last bundle sucked, I'm going to spend all my currency now. And then they're going to give you a bundle that you want, and you're going to go, damn it, I wish I had currency left. I guess I'm going to have to buy some currency if I really want this third bundle or fourth bundle, whatever it's going to be. Chances are we may get at least one more. How many days do we have left? There's 5 days left in the arc, so we'll get, maybe that'll probably be it for the bundles. We'll probably get one more bundle in a day and a half. So I would hold off on spending your event store currency for another day and a half if you can, just to see what that third bundle is and see if it's got any value to it. Alright, that was a lot. That was like 45 solid minutes right there. Let's go read some comments and questions. Got Hugh, got Hugh, got Hugh. Look how hard Picard. Yep. One of our whales said, incursions are dead. Yeah, it's very likely. I mean, it's very likely they scrap incursions, right? If they can't get it to work right, or people just aren't responding to it, and they don't want to redesign the whole thing. But then, because they've made this the primary sourcing for certain things, that may get filtered somewhere else. Maybe they change Crucible of War. That's on the slate to be changed next. Maybe they make the Crucible of War bundles or currency be convertible for Mantis blueprints or strike team officers or something. Maybe there's another way that you know the subspace relay building and things like that get sourcing, get currency added, and maybe it's just through a different event. If incursions is dead and we can't bring that back and fix that, we just move the store to something else like Crucible of War or a new event or something like that. Maybe every Friday becomes Rialta Kill Friday, and we go out with this Rialtas and we do the PvP event. So, all right, I think we answered the question about projectiles and the TOS skins. I think we covered that.